Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachanam pangam langyate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandam. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, thank you for joining. So we will resume our discussion on the topic of creation. And today we will be talking about the third in the series, which is Sarga, the actual creation of the universe. So let me share my screen. So far, we discussed the incarnations of Krishna to get an understanding of how Krishna pervades the entire creation, both material and spiritual, and how he achieves various, he performs various activities, achieves various goals through different incarnations. And that will be relevant when we look at the specific incarnations through which Krishna creates the material universe. Then we also had discussed about a little bit about the energies of Krishna and the structure of the spiritual world. And we did that to get an understanding of how Krishna resides in his original home in Goloka, and then coming down from there to Ayodhya Dham, to Vaikuntha, to Sadashiv Lok, and now we will be entering into the Devi Dham, or the material universe. So this is a brief a recap. So we had said that how Krishna originally resides in Golok, and there is Vaikuntha Dham and the Dham of Lord Shiv and Brahmajyoti, and then Devi Dham. And the creation of the Devi Dham, so with the exception of Devi Dham, everything is eternal. Even though we notionally talk about the fact that the spiritual world is created by Lord Balram, but as I mentioned, that is mostly for causality, to indicate that the spiritual world is dependent on Lord Balram. For material world is it's a little different. Even though the material world is eternal, but it goes through creation and destruction. So when we say creation of the material world, we mean it in that context, that yes, the material world is created. And the creation is divided into two phases, primary or sarga and secondary or visarga. So the primary creation is done by Lord Vishnu, by Krishna through his various incarnations, and the secondary creation is done by Lord Brahma. So the primary creation is essentially the creation of the 16 elements of matter, which is the Panch Mahabhutas, earth, water, fire, air, ether, sound, form, taste, smell, touch. These are the 5 tanmatras. Eyes, ear, nose, tongue, skin, and mind. These are the 5 Gyanendriyas. So all these are created as the part of Sarga. So Sarga refers to the manifestation of the gross material elements, the Panch Mahabhutas, the Panch Tanmatras, the 5 Gyanendriyas, Ahankar, and Mahatatvas, caused when the Lord transforms the gunas. So essentially, it is the creation of the totality of the material existence. And later on, we'll see how this totality will get differentiated into individual universes. So ultimately, Krishna is responsible for it. So even though we talked about incarnations, and we'll talk about uh, uh, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, but ultimately they're all dependent on Krishna. So this is a point that is made repeatedly. It's the basis of the Chaturshloki of the Bhagavatam, appears in the second canto. And this point is important for us to remember, that as we go down the details, then maybe Krishna is not there presently, personally, but he is there from the perspective of his energies and his empowerment. So this point is made right up front, that everything is being done by Krishna only. Initially, we had seen how the spiritual world, and this is the spiritual world we had seen had come out of the intersection of the Sandhini Shakti with Krishna's Antarangni Shakti, the internal energy. Now, the external energy interacts with Krishna's Sandhini Shakti, and we basically have the material world. So we had said that Krishna has Antarangni, Bahirangni, and Tathastha Shakti as the Vibhavs, and the Anubhavs are the Sandhini, Samvit, and Haladini. So the Sandhini Shakti and the Bahirangni Shakti, when they interact, it results in the creation of the material world, names, forms, qualities, and actions in the material world. Now, we had also seen that Lord Balram is the presiding deity of Sandhini. He essentially, the Sandhini energy is personified by Lord Balram. So this is important to note, because we will also see now the spiritual world straight away from Lord Balram, right? There's nobody in between. Lord Balram, he manifests himself as the spiritual world. In the material creation, we will see that how Lord Balram repeatedly expands himself in order to engage in this creation of the material world. Now, the material world is created by the intersection of the Sandhini and with Bahirangni. The occupants of the material world are created when Krishna's Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti interacts with his Antarangni Shakti. So, so when this interaction takes place, that Krishna's Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti that interacts with Krishna's Antarangni Shakti, then the Devas and the humans are created out of the Jnana Shakti, and the Asuras and the Rakshas are created by Krishna's Kriya Shakti. Now, Srila Prabhupada mentions that even though this is not really taken anywhere further, in the sense that not much details is known about how Krishna's material energies interact, but I'm putting it here because it's relevant over here. Srila Prabhupada mentions it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Krishna has three primary energies called Shri, Bhru, and Nila. Through Shri, he maintains the cosmic manifestation. Through Bhu, he creates the cosmic manifestation. And through Nila, which is also known as Leela or Durga, is the energy that destroys the creation. And all these energies act in relation with the living beings, and thus they are together called Jiva Maya. These then expand into 16 energies suitable for manifesting the material universes. And then the list of the 16 energies is a little different. So I'm not going to go into them, but some of them we have seen. Shri, Bhu, Leela are the three primary: Kanti, Kirti, Tushti, Pushti, Satya, Jnananjana. So these are all we see these names in the Vaikuntha also: Vimala, Yogamaya, etc. So they are all expanding, and they assist Krishna in the task of creating. And Prabhupada mentioned that in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, a slightly different list is given. Now let's get into the details of the Sagga. So Krishna, as we know, in his original form, is two-armed. Right? In the two-armed form, he lives in Golok with Srimati Radharani. But for the purpose of creation, Krishna himself has expanded into various parts, ocean and particles, as Swayam Rupa, Swayam Prakash, Tadegatma Rup, Prabhava Vaibhava, Vilas, Avatar, Avesh, and Jiva. So Srila Prabhupada here is talking about the various categories of incarnations, and all provided with innumerable energies, just suitable to the respective persons and personalities. So even though Krishna himself is doing it, but he's doing it through his expansions, through his amshas of the expansions, and through empowered jivas, and through jivas. And we will see how each one of them play a role in assisting Krishna in the creation of the universe. Now we saw that when we were studying incarnations, that Krishna expands to Balram. Balram expands to Lord Sankarshan. This is the Adi Sankarshan. And Sankarshan expands to Lord Narayan. So in the Vaikuntha realm, there are unlimited number of Narayans who are essentially Vishnu Tattvas. They are non-different. So they're called plenary expansions. Plenary means complete in all senses. So there are plenary expansions of Krishna. And this is essentially just a recap. We discussed this during incarnations. So while Krishna in Goloka is two-armed, Lord Narayan is four-armed. And he holds the Shankha Chakra, Gada, and Padma. And then Sri, Bhu, and Nila, these are the energies that serve his lotus feet. So this is now still Krishna in Vaikuntha, still in the spiritual world. Now, Lord Narayan, he expands to Mahasankarshan, and Mahasankarshan expands further. So, from Krishna or Govinda comes Balram, from Balram comes Sankarshan, from Sankarshan Narayan, from Narayan the second Sankarshan, also called Mahasankarshan, from him Mahavishnu, and from Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu comes Ananta Shesh. So this is essentially setting the sequence of incarnations that will now lead to the creation of the material world. So we had seen in the energies table that Lord Balram is the primary source of the material world. Right? We had said the Sandhini energy, when it interacts with Krishna's Bhairangini Shakti, then the material world comes into existence. So we see over here again that it's through Lord Balram that the personalities who are going to be supervising the creation of the material world come into existence. So specifically, these 5 plenary portions: Mahasankarshan, Karnodakshaya Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Shriyodakshaya Vishnu, and Ananta Shesh. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said these 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestation. So of these 5, the first 4 are responsible for the creating of the material universe: Mahasankarshan, Karnodakshaya, Garbhodakshaya, and Shodakshaya. Actually, it's 2, 3, and 4. Mahasankarshan is also included because he's expanding into Karnodakshaya. Vishnu. And we will see that Mahasankarshan, he is also the source of Lord Shiva. So he is also included here. And then the fifth incarnation, Anantashesh, he does not participate that much in creation, but he is responsible for the personal service of the Lord. So when we see Karnodaksha Vishnu or Garbhodaksha Vishnu or Shivodaksha Vishnu lying on a bed of serpent, that is Anantashesh, who is serving Lord Vishnu. So this is the Lord serving the Lord. Anantashesh is considered to be an expansion of Krishna, but in the mood of service. And Anantashesh also expands into the couch and the slipper and the Brahman thread and the paraphernalia. So he's essentially absorbed in serving Lord Vishnu, while Lord Vishnu is absorbed in the process of cosmic manifestation. So the whole process of creation begins by the personality of Mahavishnu. So in the previous slides, we saw that Mahavishnu appears from Mahasankarshan. We went down the incarnation chain, that Krishna expands into Balram, who expands to Sankarshan, expands to Narayan, who expands to Mahasankarshan. Mahasankarshan now expands to Mahavishnu, who is also known as Karnodaksha Vishnu. And when the process of creation begins, then Mahavishnu lies on the Viraj river. And he's called an portion of the portions. So several portions down is actually considered to be an amsha of the expansion of Krishna. So the first thing that Lord Vishnu or Mahavishnu does is that he makes his residence on the causal ocean or the Viraj river. Now, what is this causal ocean? What is this Viraj river? How do we understand that? So the causal ocean, it divides the material and the spiritual world. So this is where we had ended our previous discussion. When we were going down and down, then we went from Vaikuntha to Shivlok, from Shivlok to or Brahman to Shivlok, Sadashivlok, and then we had come down to the Viraj river. And then we had said that now this is the description of the Viraj river will be done as part of Sarga. So the Viraj river is what is dividing the material world and the spiritual world. So at one end of it is Brahman. So even though we know that this is on the northeast corner, but for the sake of understanding, let's assume that it is below. It is below the Brahman. So one shore of it is Brahman, which leads to the spiritual world. And the entire material creation exists within the water of the causal ocean. So sometimes conventionally it is said that one shore is the spiritual world, one shore is the material world, and the Viraj river is flowing in between. So that is factually half correct, because the material world is not on the other shore of the Viraj river. The material world is in the Viraj river. So factually speaking, there is no other shore. That part is not explained. That where does the Viraj river end? But one shore, it's clear that there is one shore, and when the Viraj river ends, the Brahman begins. But the southern part of the Viraj river is where all the material universes exist. Then the water of the so Viraj river is also known as causal ocean or Karan Sagar, because it is the cause of the material world. So now the water of the Viraj river is fully spiritual. And the example that is given is that the sacred Ganges is but a drop of it which falls into our universe. And because it is spiritual, it purifies all the souls. What is the source of the water? And different parts of the scriptures give different understanding. So one dominant understanding is that when Lord Mahavishnu desired to create, then he lay down in one corner of the creation, the Ekapath. And there, by the perspiration from his body, he produced the causal ocean. And because it's the perspiration of his body, it is fully spiritual. The other understanding is that it is the perspiration of the personified Vedas. And again, because the Vedas are fully spiritual, so is the causal ocean spiritual. And the third, which is a little bit more esoteric, is that it is the body of a gopi by the name of Viraj. So the pastimes are given that that gopi, there was a gopi by the name of Viraj who was very much favored by Krishna. And once Krishna was enjoying pastimes with Viraj, and Srimati Radharani came. And Krishna disappeared, and Viraj was mortified by the anger of Srimati Radharani. So her body melted into water and became the causal ocean. So these are the three understandings that we are given. Now all the universes, they exist together as foam-like clusters. So foam, like we see, especially when on the beach, we see the foams, they're like soap-like bubbles. And Srila Prabhupada makes this interesting point that because these universes are clustered together, some of them are surrounded by other universes and some of them are directly exposed to the water of the causal ocean. So some of the universes are adjacent to one another, whereas the others who are in the outer part of the cluster, they are directly exposed to the water of the causal ocean. And we are one of those situations. That is why the Ganges came in. So we are directly connected to the causal ocean. Maya Shakti resides outside the Karan Sagar. Maya cannot touch its water. Now, this statement has to be understood from the perspective of influence, not residence. That if the material universes are within the causal ocean, then they are Devi Dham. So her dham is within the causal ocean. So she obviously resides within the causal ocean, but she has no influence over it. Because that point's been made that it is fully spiritual. And in that ocean, so this is Lord Mahavishnu lying in the causal ocean in Yoga Nidra. And Prabhupada makes another interesting point that just like there are Brahmavadis who aspire to merge into the Brahman, there are some who aspire to merge into the causal ocean. They are called Virajavadis. And he says they are also impersonalists. So different kind of destination for jivas. And because the soul is Sarvagatha, so one can understand that even the waters of the causal ocean are habited, but these are also impersonals. They're simply residing in the causal ocean without any interaction with one another. So we mentioned that Mahavishnu is lying in Yoga Nidra, And this yoga nidra is not sleeping. It is different. That is why it is called yoga nidra. So nidra over here means that he is materially inactive, but he is spiritually fully sentient. So the word yoga means that is fully connected. So when Mahavishnu is lying there, he's not lying like dozing off or in suspended animation, even though it is picturized that his eyes are closed and he's seems to be disconnected, but actually he's fully connected. But he's fully connected to his spiritual energy. So this yoga nidra, it is personified by Rama Devi, who is the eternal consort of Mahavishnu, and she is an expansion of Mahalakshmi from Vaikuntha. So just like Lord Narayan eventually expands into Mahavishnu, his consort eventually expands into Ramadevi. Now, this is important to note that when Lord Mahavishnu is residing on the causal ocean, then all the conditioned jivas that represent the entire conditioned existence, they are within the body of Mahavishnu. They are all in Shushupti. So they are all what Shushupti, the closest is suspended animation or deep sleep. And the sum total of the entire jivas that are conditioned are now within the body of Mahavishnu. At some point of time, Mahavishnu desires to let them engage in their perverted desires as a way for the imminent purification. So the reason that they're conditioned is because they have perverted desires. And Mahavishnu, out of compassion for them, now he desires that they engage in this desire, not because he wants to pervert them even more, but because the nature of the material world is that it also offers a method for liberation. So ultimately, for this purpose, Lord Vishnu, he desires to out of mercy, he desires to liberate them. So he begins with the process of the creation of the material world. Now, Vallabhacharya in his prayers, he says, Shrishti Madhuram, that this pastime of creation is enjoyable by the Lord. So the understanding is that even though the Lord is doing this for those who have turned their back to him, but he is still enjoying because it's his nature to enjoy. So one should not think that the jivas have been put into the material world because the Lord desires to enjoy. So one should also not think that this whole creation of the material world is a big chore for the Lord, or it's something that fills him with a lot of mortification or displeasure. Both the statements are incorrect. The Lord enjoys because it is his Gonavritti. That is his primary nature. That he enjoys the activities that he does. But he does not create the universe and put the jivas over there only for his purpose of enjoyment. The jivas are there because of their own perverted desires. So here we have Mahavishnu in Yoga Nidra. Now, in order to further help, we see two more personalities manifest. Now, all these personalities are eternal. So when we speak about them on a time scale, they're just to get some understanding of the sequence of events. So who are these two personalities? We have Shambhu and Durga. These two personalities appear to assist the Lord in the further creation of the universe. So a little bit about Lord Shambhu. So the Lord Shambhu that has manifested now is Shiva Tattva. And he is an expansion of Sadashiv, who is Vishnu Tattva. We discussed that last time. He is also the the manifestation or the personification of the glance of Mahavishnu. He is different from the Rudras who are born from between the eyebrows of Lord Brahma. And he is actually their cause. But he is different for obvious reasons, that the Rudras come as part of Visarga, and he has come at a very early stage of Sarga. So he is different from them. So Lord Shambhu does this duty of instilling ahankar. So he enters into the conditioned and living entities and makes them identify themselves as separated enjoyers. So the mundane egoistical principle is personified by Lord Shambhu. So Lord Shambhu is, that's why, considered sometimes to be tamasi, because he is in charge of the mode of ignorance. Not that he is in the mode of ignorance, but it is because of the influence of Lord Shiva that the jivas, they consider themselves to be separate from Krishna. They consider themselves to be the body. Actually, what he is doing is that he is teaching them dharma. He is teaching them how to attain spiritual service by his instructions, through his teachings to Parvati Devi, to Narad Muni, and by his personal example. From a more technical perspective, the jivas have 50 qualities. All these 50 qualities are fully manifest in Lord Shiva, and he has 5 additional qualities that are not found in jivas. So that is why it is said that no jiva can become Lord Shiva, because he has 55 qualities. So the jivas cannot change their intrinsic nature. If they are going up and down the realization scale, then these 50 qualities become less and more manifest. So in Lord Brahma, the 50 qualities are manifest the most. And then as we go down, they are less and less, but they're still Brahma has the same 50 qualities that we are. In us, it may be 1%, in him, it may be 95%, but same 50 qualities. But Lord Shiva has 55 qualities. So Lord Brahma can never become Lord Shiva, because those additional 5 qualities are intrinsic to his existence as a jiva. Then the second personality that had manifested was Durga Devi. So she is the external potency, the shadow of the Chit potency, essentially the Bahirangni Shakti. So you remember we had said the Bahirangni Shakti intersects with the Sandhini Shakti. Now the Sandhini Shakti has expanded into Lord Shiva, and the Bahirangni Shakti is personified by Durga Devi. So the Sandhini Shakti of Lord Balram through Vishnu and through Mahavishnu to Sadashiv has now appeared as Shambhu. And the Bahirangni Shakti is manifested as Maya Devi, and by the intersection of these two, the universes will be created. She is an expansion of Rama Devi, and she has a material nature. So Rama Devi, even though she expands into Durga Devi, Rama Devi is the consort of Lord Vishnu. So she is fully spiritual, but Durga Devi has a material nature. She has two varieties of existence. One is called Pradhan, and through Pradhan, she supplies the ingredients of the material world. And the second is, she is also the cause of the cosmic manifestation. So you can think of it this way, that a potter, he gets some clay, and then he makes the pot out of it. So he supplies the clay, but he also shapes the clay into a pot. And Maya Devi is doing these two functions, that she supplies the material and then shapes the material to create the cosmic manifestation. And Durga Devi is in charge of the material world for those who have forgotten their position to Krishna. And she uses the wheel of karma as the instrument of punishment. So some more qualities of Durga Devi. Durga Devi is to some extent important for us because this is ultimately Devi Dham. So the Devi Dham consisting of the 14 worlds, and Durga Devi is the presiding deity. She is 10-armed, representing the tenfold fruitive activity. She rides a lion, representing her heroic prowess. She tramples down Mahishasur, representing the subduer of vices. She is the mother of two sons, Kartik and Ganesh, representing beauty and success. She is placed between Lakshmi and Saraswati, representing mundane opulence and mundane knowledge. She is armed with 20 weapons, representing the various pious activities enjoined by the Vedas for the suppression of vices. She holds the snake, which represents the beauty of destructive time. And so these are points made by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Then he concludes saying that such is Durga, possessing all these manifold forms. Durga is possessor of Durg. Durg means prison house. So she gets the work for purifying the jivas who have forgotten their position. So she is engaged in their service by the will of Lord, and she is doing it as a service to him. So she has no personal enmity against the jivas. In fact, she would like to see them go back to the spiritual world. But while they are in the position of being averse to Krishna, then she has this duty of making sure that they are confined within the material world. So now we have understood these two personalities, Shambhu and Durga Devi, a little bit about their nature, their relationship. So we will now start with the process of creation. So there is Karno Daksha Vishnu lying in the causal ocean. There's Rama Devi, and he does two things at this point. He breathes and he glances. So we see this as the glance of Mahavishnu, and we see this as the breath. These are the innumerable universes that are emanating because of his breath. So let's first look at the breath of Mahavishnu. That when he exhales, the universes are manifested with each outward breath, and when he inhales, they enter his body. So the whole material creation with the unlimited universes comes into existence when he breathes out. And the whole material creation with its innumerable universes goes into his body when he breathes in. So creation, annihilation. creation, annihilation. And these, as he is breathing, there are these small, and because Mahavishnu is big, each of this universe is a small atomic particle related to him, almost as if it is a dust that is passing through the grill in the window. These that are floating are the spiritual seeds of Sankarshan, and they're covered with the Pancha Maha Bhutas. Now, so maybe I'll cover that later. But these, what is emanating is matter. So this is important to understand, that even though Mahavishnu holds the jivas are not coming out. What essentially is coming out is matter. So when the universe is created, there is the material creation of the universe, and then there is the entry of the jivas. And the third thing is the interaction of the jivas with the material universe. These are the three things that are going on. The jivas are eternal, but they're channeled into these universes. The universes are constructed out of matter, and there is a lot of effort that goes in creating this mechanism for interaction. It's like there is a person who jumps into the water. The person is existing, the water is existing, but for the person to survive in the water, he needs an aqua suit. And in the aqua suit, they have all these complications. That how will he move his hand? How will he breathe? How will he float? How will he sink? All that thing is built into the aqua suit. Other things are simple. The water is there, he is there. So what a lot of the creation that we will see is happening is the construction of the aqua suit, of the jiva with the prakriti, with matter. Because by nature, jiva cannot interact with matter. Jiva is spiritual, matter is material. There's no way that they can speak to one another. But because the jiva wants to enjoy matter, then Krishna has to create this interface between the two. But what is manifesting now is essentially matter. Now, when these enter into Maya Devi, you can understand as saying that Maya Devi takes charge of it. They become Pradhan, which is the beginning of the creation of the material universes. Maya Devi takes charge of Pradhan. So this is a quote from the Bhagavatam that talks about it. Now, these are also in Brahma Samhita. They're called as the spirituals, as golden sperms, and they're covered with the five elements. So when they are coming out of Mahavishnu, and this is just a feeble attempt to show something that is difficult to show, that from the body of Mahavishnu, they now enter under the dominion of Maya Devi, and they become enlarged. So they all combine and they become Pradhan. So here we have to understand something that's a little mystical, that the universe, the individual universes that are coming from the body of Mahavishnu lose their individuality when they enter into Pradhan, and regain the individuality when subsequently they are formed into the Brahman. How this happens is not explained, obviously by the desire of Krishna, but we know that the Pradhan is undifferentiated. There is no concept of saying that within the Pradhan, this is universe number one, this is universe number two. Everything is the same. It is just the sum total of the creation of the material world. But we also know that the Pradhan is created by these by these individual universes that came out, or the seeds of the universes that came out from the body of Mahavishnu. So they came, they combined, they became amalgamated, they lost their individuality, but somehow that individuality is still retained. But the Pradhan is undifferentiated. Everything is the same here. So as I mentioned, Maya Devi takes control of the Pradhan. So we'll talk about the characteristics of Pradhan, and then I'll take a break there. And then we'll go, then after that is the subsequent conversions of Pradhan. So Pradhan is also called Sagun Brahman, because essentially it is created out of Brahman. The Brahman, which is Nirgun, when it comes under the influence of gunas, it becomes Pradhan. So one of the names is Sagun Brahman. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna refers it to as Yonir Mahad Brahma. He says Aham Bij Prata. So he calls it Yonir Mahad Brahma. So it is unmanifested, eternal. Eternal in the sense that even though Pradhan comes and goes, but it is always there. Right? Just like we say the 5 subjects of Bhagavad Gita, Prakriti is eternal. It's essentially referring to Pradhan. The Pradhan is eternal. It's going through transformations, but it is essential. It is a sum total of 24 elements. Now again, here we have to understand, so we'll see what the 24 elements are, but they actually don't exist in the Pradhan, because that would contradict the earlier premise that the Pradhan is unmanifested. So we cannot say that it is unmanifested, but it manifests 24 elements. But we still say that to indicate that the Pradhan, when it becomes differentiated, it will manifest into 24 elements. So from that perspective, we say that the Pradhan is composed of 24 elements, but these 24 elements do not exist in the Pradhan. So one cannot go into the Pradhan and say there is earth and water and fire over here, because there is no earth, water, fire. They're all amalgamated. But from the Pradhan comes earth, water, fire. So we can also say that earth, water, fire is in the Pradhan. So that way we understand this apparent contradiction when we say that the Pradhan is unmanifested, undifferentiated, but still it has the elements in it. Now Pradhan is in a balanced or passive state, because the cause and effect are not manifested. So Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu, he breathed out. When he breathed, all these universes manifested from the pores of his body. They combined, they became Pradhan, and they lay over there. Nothing happened, because essentially it is dead matter. Matter in itself cannot do anything. And more so because there is no cause and effect. The changes happen between Sadasad, between effect and cause. Sad is effect, Asad is cause, but there is no cause and effect. Everything is the same. So Pradhan essentially lies in a passive state. And within the Pradhan are the seeds of all the future manifestations of the universe. It is the cause of Prakriti, or it is a cause of Mahatattva, which we will discuss. So I'll pause over here and see if we have any comments.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji, I can hear you.
I have one question. So we know that Mahavishnu, or Karunadakashaya Vishnu, right? He is the one who is breathing. Do I understand correctly? Karunadakashaya, his name. Does he have a cycle of breathing? Like he, inhales and exhales, and then he has to again inhale and exhale, or it's up to him? Like he can stop breathing, and then the universes are not going to be created? or he has a cycle, like he has to breathe out and in, out and in? That's my first question. And the second question, we see that everything in universe usually comes in pairs, like Radha and Krishna, Sita and Rama. And this Karuna Dakashaya Vishnu, he is by himself, he doesn't have a consort.
So consort of Mahavishnu is Ramadevi. I mentioned that earlier on, that she's an expansion of Mahalakshmi from Vaikuntha. Most of the pictures, for some reason, they don't show Ramadevi there, but yes, he's served by Ramadevi. In terms of the first question, I haven't read anything about one way or the other that if Lord Maha, I mean, obviously he's Swarat, he's independent, he can do anything he wants, but I haven't read that there is a cycle that he follows. I mean, we know that he breathes out and the universes are created, and the universes stay for a certain time period, and then he breathes in and then they are destroyed. But I guess your question is that as soon as he breathes in, does he immediately breathe out, or does he wait for some time, or does he follow a certain pattern? That I don't know. I don't remember reading about it anywhere.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's Sarangadas. About this one breath of Mahavishnu is equal 100 years of Lord Brahma, no?
Right. So in that breath, exactly is half a breath because it's an exhalation.
Yes.
The 100 years of Brahma go.
And
So,
I have one more question. So in modern science, there is such a conception of as dark matter. So what people are, speaking about in modern science about the dark matter, can we, if we make a parallel into the Vedic knowledge, can we say it's Brahman, or there is no such equation to make parallels between Vedic knowledge and modern science?
they probably, I'm not aware of it, so it's difficult for me to speak about it. They probably are. They probably, some Vedic cosmologists who are looking at it from that perspective, but I'm not aware of it. So difficult for me to speak about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, when you mentioned the first, when you began this class, you started talking about Mahatattva, and it has 16 elements. And you said that 5 tanmatras, 5 panchabhutas, and 5 jnanendriyas. You didn't say about karmendriya, and that is because it's not differentiated yet. Is that the reason?
No. See, this is the point I made, that different verses, they will give different number of constituent elements, and it's difficult to reconcile them. Why does this say so? So the 16th element over there, I believe, is the Mahatattva, and then you can say the Mahatattva includes the karmendriyas and the other things. So it's always the class, the way that they count depends on how you classify, and if you change the classification, the count changes. So difficult to reconcile the count across different verses.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the breath of Mahavishnu, it enters Durga Devi through Sadasiva and then through Shambhu, and in that channel it comes, Prabhuji?
We'll talk about that. So right now we just talk about the breath and Lord Shiva, but we'll talk about and Durga Devi, but we'll talk about Lord Shiva now.
Sure, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. I have a quick question, Prabhuji. So the causal ocean is a spiritual world, and the material world is also within the causal ocean, Prabhuji. There is a shore. You said there is another shore is not there. I'm a little bit confused on that.
It's a little difficult to imagine, but but the understanding is that there is the causal ocean that divides the material world from the spiritual world. So if you think of it as easiest to think of it as a river, one shore of the river is the Brahman, and then the Brahman leads into Sadashiv Lok and Vaikuntha and the whole spiritual world that we discussed. Within the waters of the causal ocean is the entire material cosmic manifestation. So that's the picture. Now, what is left hanging is, where is the other shore? So the only statement that is given is that there is really no other shore of the Viraj river. There is just the one shore that divides the material world from the spiritual world, and then there is the waters of the Viraj river that contain the material cosmic manifestation.
Got it, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, so moving on. So now we are at this stage that Pradhan has been created, which is the sum total of the material elements of all the universes. So we had said that even though it is unmanifested, but 24 elements are present in an unmanifest form in the Pradhan. And if we understand these 24 elements, then we can understand at some time they will say Pradhan is 16 elements, sometimes they will say 11 elements, but at the base level are these 24 elements that get counted differently. So that is why important for us to understand the base constituent of it. So there are the Chatur Panchams. So these are what we call as the Panchams, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the Chatur Panchams. So we have the Panchabhutas, earth, water, fire, air, ether, the Tanmatras, which are essentially the subtle quality of this Panchabhuta: smell, taste, sight, touch, and sound. And then we have the Gyanendriyas, which basically perceive these Tanmatras: nose, tongue, eyes, skin, and ear. So these are 15. Then we have the 5 Karmendriyas: hand, legs, tongue, anus, and genitals. And then we have the 4 Antakaranas, which is mind, intelligence, false ego, and Chitta. So Chitta is consciousness. Mind, intelligence, false ego, we know. Chitta is the 4th element that is there in the Pradhan, which is consciousness. So these create the 24 elements of the Pradhan. So it will help for us to at least have a mental picture of this. That we have the Panchabhutas, Tanmatras, Gyanendriyas, 15. Then we have the 5 Karmendriyas and the 4 Antakaranas. These are the 24 elements. Now let's talk about the glands. So the breath of Mahavishnu ended up in the creation of the Pradhan, which has 24 elements in an unmanifest form, which is the sum total of the matter of all the universe. Now we had said that Lord Vishnu does 2 things. He breathes and he glances. So the breath of Lord Vishnu came under the dominion of Maya Devi. So we said that Durga Devi is the one who took charge of the Pradhan. Now the glance of Mahavishnu is initially directed towards Rama Devi, his consort. She takes this and hands it over to her expansion, which is Maya Devi. Which is why it is said that Mahavishnu never comes in direct contact with Maya Devi. It is actually, he is 2 steps separated from her. First is that he glances at Rama Devi. That as her husband, when he desires something, he glances at her. And as a wife, she understands what the glance means and takes the glance and hands it to her expansion, Maya Devi. But she does not hand it directly. Lord Shiva takes charge of the glance. So we had said 2 personalities manifest. One was Maya Devi and one was Shambhu. Now that Lord Shambhu is now coming into play and taking charge of the glance of Mahavishnu. So the Lord is the seer and the external energy which is seen works as both the cause and the effect. So it is the effect because she is seen, and it is the cause because she is the mother of the subsequent creations. So what does this glance contain? So the glance contains the jivas. Now with the breath came the matter, but he was also holding the jivas within himself. So now with the glance comes the jivas. So let's see what is the glance. Anyway, this is a picturization of the glance. This is actually so we see that Lord Shambhu is now carrying the glance to Mayadevi. And this Lord Shambhu is eternally residing in the Viraja river. So we now see the coming together of the two branches. So from Krishna came Balram, Sankarshan, Narayan, Mahasankarshan, and Sadashiv. Right? The Mahasankarshan expands into Mahavishnu and into Sadashiv. Right? Now, from the Shakti channel comes Radharani, Chandravali. They expand into the Lakshmi. She expands into Ramadevi. She expands into Mayadevi. Now, Sadashiv expands into Lord Shiva. So now we have the two personalities who are actually going to be creating the material universe. And that is how we see that Krishna has nothing to do with it. Even Mahavishnu has nothing to do with it. So he has breathed and he has glanced. His breath was taken by Durga Devi. His glance is taken by Lord Shiva, and together they will create further. Now we will constantly see Krishna's hand over there. So it's not that Krishna detaches there, but essentially he is still acting from afar, or he's acting through the agency of Shambhu and Mayadevi. So the glance of Mahavishnu has three things in it. It has Kal, time, it has Swabhav, karma, and it has karma. These are the three things that are carried in the glance of Mahavishnu. So the personification of Kal is Lord Shiva, and Swabhav and karma is Jiva. So essentially the glance carries Lord Shiva and Jiva. Lord Shiva as time, and the Jiva is the only one that has karma and Swabhav. So Swabhav is essentially, it's not the modes of material nature, but that which causes the modes of material nature to change. That is called Swabhav. Because the modes of material nature are already present within the Pradhan in a balanced state. Right? We'll see that. But the Jiva carries Swabhav, that which has the ability to change the modes of material nature. And we see that in our lives also, right? We have a certain nature. Based on the nature, we manipulate the modes of material nature. We don't actually create them, but we manipulate them. Goodness, passion, ignorance, we combine them in different ways. So that is the intrinsic nature or the desires of the Jiva that are coming. Now, the glance and the breath of Mahavishnu are combining into Shiva and Parvati. So they are also known as Amba Vishwanath. Amba is another name for mother, and Vishwanath is the Lord of the universe. And they are worshipped as Shivalinga, because they are the immediate cause of the material world. So what happens when there is a combination of the glance and the breath. Now remember, the breath is pradhan and the glands is kal, karma and swabhav. So these things are now combining. Let us see what happens when they combine. So this is just an analogy to explain that let's assume that you have a pot which is filled with a liquid, which is pradhan. That is the liquid that is present, which is quiesced, which is passive. Nothing much is going on. It's just lying in the pot. Now, time is the stirring rod. Time is the one that agitates the pradhan. Swabhav is the catalyst. So swabhav is that which causes changes. And karma is the fuel, which is the desires of the jiva. So what was lying in a pot, just passive, it is stirred by the rod of karma. You put in a catalyst is what something that causes a chemical reaction. So swabhav goes in there and it causes the modes to start reacting. And then karma is the one that supplies the energy, that supplies the fuel for all this to take place. Now, this is all, of course, metaphorical, but this is how the universe has been created, by the desires of the jiva, shaped by the swabhav and agitated by time. And what comes out of it is so the combination of this is Lord Shiva and Parvati. That the pradhan is Parvati Devi and Lord Shiva is Kal, and the jiva is, of course, swabhav and karma. So what comes out of this is the next stage of creation, which is Mahatattva. So we had the breath and the glands as combining. The breath was the pradhan, the glands was the jiva and Lord Shiva. They combined. Now we have what is called Mahatattva. What are the characteristics of Mahatattva? Now again, in terms of nomenclature, sometimes Mahatattva is called Prakriti also. And in the 26th chapter, 3rd canto, Prakriti is actually given as one of the substates of Mahatattva. So we're not going in that details, but we can consider them synonymous. So when the pradhan is impregnated by the glands of Mahavishnu, which carries Kal and Jiva, along with the karma and swabhav, when it is agitated by the destination of the conditioned soul, so this is the desires or karma, then the pradhan produces the Mahatattva or Prakriti. So present in the Mahatattva, in addition to the 24 elements that we had identified, is also Kal, Karma and Swabhav. So we have now 27 elements. We have Kal, we have Karma and Swabhav. Karma and Swabhav are generally considered to be one. So that's why generally it's counted as 26 elements, because Karma and Swabhav are intrinsically associated with the Jiva. So it's the 24 elements of Pradhan plus time. Sometimes time is considered to be Paramatma. So in some verses, you will see that Mahatattva is Paramatma, which is essentially his aspect of time. Sometimes Lord Shiva. And Karma and Swabhav, as I mentioned, indicates the presence of Shiva. And then I mentioned that elsewhere Mahatattva is divided into 16 parts, which is the 5 gross material elements and the 11 working instruments or senses. So it's just different ways of counting the same number of elements. But essentially what has happened now, that the Mahatattva has differentiated. So what was undifferentiated in the Pradhan, those 24 elements are now distinctly present, along with the 25th and the 26th element. So the Mahatattva is also considered to be the root of all cosmic manifestation. And Srila Prabhupada calls it as the medium between pure spirit and material existence. the junction of matter and spirit, whereupon the false ego of the living entity is generated. And we'll see how that happens. But this is the description of Mahatattva or Prakriti. 24 elements of the Pradhan present in the differentiated form, accompanied with Kal and Jiva. That is Mahatattva. So further transformations. So we started off with Pradhan, and we said now Kal and Jiva is essentially Swabhav and Karma. Now because now the agitation is taking place, things are out of balance, further transformation will happen because of the influence of the modes of material nature. So we will see the three modes now acting upon the differentiated elements of Pradhan. So by the influence of Satogun, Mahatattva appears. By the influence of Rajogun, Sutra Tattva appears. And by the influence of Tamogun, Ahankar appears. Now collectively, these three are called Mahatattva. And again, it's a little confusing because this is also called Mahatattva, this is also called Mahatattva. Sometimes to distinguish it, this is called Prakriti, and this is called Mahatattva. But Mahatattva is essentially Pradhan in the mode of goodness. Sutra Tattva is Pradhan in the mode of passion, and Ahankar is Pradhan in the mode of ignorance. So, what is Mahatattva, which is Pradhan in the mode of goodness? That it essentially represents Shuddha Sattva. It is pure consciousness that is personified by Lord Vasudeva. And it manifests complete serenity, clarity, freedom from distraction. It is a state of Krishna consciousness. But there is a slight addition of the mode of passion, and therefore activity is generated. This statement actually is talking about not the Mahatattva in the mode of goodness, but the original Mahatattva that has come from Pradhan. Because this Mahatattva is essentially in the mode of pure goodness. And we know that the Mahatattva exists because if it did not exist, then there would be no way for the Jiva to go back to Krishna. So this Mahatattva, it represents as consciousness within the Jiva, the spiritual consciousness. Because if you think of it this way, that if the Jiva went in the material world without any way to come back, then there would be no hope for it. There would be no point in giving spiritual instructions. The Jiva would not be able to understand spiritual topics, would not be able to conceive the presence of God. But because of the presence of this Mahatattva in the mode of goodness, Chitta, in Shuddha Sattva, the Jiva is able to connect back. And essentially, when the Jiva is making spiritual progress, then this is what is growing. The Mahatattva in the mode of goodness is growing. That's why it is said that devotees, when they are advanced, they are in the state of Shuddha Sattva, uncontaminated by any of the modes. Second was Sutra Tattva. Sutra Tattva is the most mysterious because very little is written about it. And whatever is written is kind of cryptic there. So we know that it is the transformation that comes from the mode of passion. And what does it do? In the material world, one's real knowledge is covered by fruitive activities and mental speculation. So this is how the Sutra Tattva manifests. So it is also manifested as the prana. Now this prana is not the Pancha Prana. This is not the 5 life waves that are there. This is a different prana, which is described as follows: that the prana arises from the combination of the subtle form of the body, mind, and senses. And that pran is a manifestation of the Sutra Tattva. So this is looking downwards up. If you look upward downwards, what we understand is that the Sutra Tattva, when it becomes more gross, from subtle to more gross, then it manifests as body, mind, and senses in a subtle form. And because of the presence of the Sutra Tattva, any action is possible. The senses perform action following the Sutra Tattva. And if the Sutra Tattva ceases, then the senses will cease to act. So it indicates the complete dependence of the senses on Sutra Tattva. The third manifestation is the most important, because this is what will result in the creation of the material universe, which is the conversion of pradhan in the mode of ignorance, creating ahankar. So actually it is said that predominantly there is ahankar, and because of that ahankar, the Mahatattva is generated in false ego, which is the cause of the bewilderment of the living entities. Now this is also a plenary expansion of the Lord. We had said this is the Chaturvyuha because it is under the control of Sankarshan. So we had said that Lord Shiva is in charge of Ahankar. So essentially Lord Shiva, Lord Sankarshan through Lord Shiva is presiding over Ahankar. And it is the junction of matter and spirit. So this is what is enabling spirit to think that it is matter. That is why it is called the junction of matter and spirit. So this transformation from clear consciousness to the contaminated consciousness happens in the conversion from pradhan to mahatattva. So we see that it has distilled itself into mahatattva, sutra tattva, and ahankar. Within ahankar, there is a predominance of the mode of ignorance. There is still mode of goodness and passion, we'll see that, but predominantly there is mode of ignorance within the ahankar. So this is just to indicate the presiding deities of the elements. So we have the Chaturvyuha, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Anirudh. They preside over Chitta, which is Shuddha Sattva. Lord Sankarshan presides over Ahankar, which is Tamas. Lord Pradyumna presides over Buddhi, which is Rajogun. And Anirudh presides over Manas, which is Sattva. And within the material universe, they manifest as the Super Soul. Then Lord Sankarshan manifests as Mahavishnu. Lord Pradyumna manifests as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And Anirudh manifests as Kshodakshay Vishnu. And they are worshipped. So Vasudeva is worshipped as Krishna. This is our way back. This is our way back to Godhead. Then Lord Sankarshan is worshipped through Lord Shiva. Pradyumna is worshipped through Brahma. And Aniruddha is worshipped through the moon god Chandra. So now we are going to focus on Ahankar. That Ahankar has been created, and further transformations in Ahankar is going to be resulting in the subsequent creation of the elements. So Pradhan was acted upon by Tamagun, created Ahankar. Now Ahankar further gets acted upon by the three modes. And that's why we said that even though there is a dominance of Tamogun, we have Satagun and Rajogun also, which will act on Ahankar. By the action of Satagun, Jnana Shakti appears. By the action of Rajogun, Kriya Shakti appears. And by the action of Tamogun, Dravya Shakti appears. So what is Jnana Shakti? This is manifested as mind, and the controlling deities of the 10 senses. The 10 senses are the 5 Gyanendriyas and the 5 Karmendriyas. So each one of them has a controlling deity, and they manifest through the Jnana Shakti in addition to the mind. Right? So we say the Manas is in the mode of goodness, Buddhi is in the mode of passion. So this is Manas that is coming through the action of Satoguna on Ahankar. In Kriya Shakti, the 10 senses are manifesting, which is the 5 Karmendriyas and the 5 Jnanendriya, and intelligence is manifesting. So here, mind in the mode of goodness, Manas, and here Buddhi, intelligence in the mode of passion. Under Drav Shakti, we have the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the 5 tanmatras, the subtle quality of the 5 elements: the smell, taste, sight, etc. So from Ahankar, by the action of Sattva, Rajo, and Guna, these things have manifested. So the first is the doer or Adideva, the second is the cause or Atma, and the third is the effect or Adibhuta. So further details on the evolution of Ahankar is, so I discussed this, that it's chiefly in the mode of ignorance, presided by Sankarshan. It is manifested by cause effect, Jnana-kriya and Dravya. In the mode of goodness, personified by Ahankar, Sankalpa and Vikalp are the characteristics of the mind. In the mode of passion, Buddhi appears by Brahma and Pradyumna. What does it help? It assists in producing doubt, misapprehensions, memory, and sleep. And in the mode of ignorance, the material elements appear. So these are the Adhyatmic, Adhibhautik, Adhyatmic, and Adhidevik. Now, important to understand that while all these are appearing, they are appearing only because of they have a direct correlation with Krishna. So because of Krishna's subtle senses, do the gross elements appear. And because of Krishna's gross sense, the subtle elements appear and the presiding deities appear. So because Krishna hears, this is the subtle sense, that Krishna hears, sound appears, and the media to carry sound, which is sky or ether, appears. So this is the tanmatra, sound, and the bhuta is the sky. And because Krishna has an ear, the jivas have the ability to hear, which is shrotra, and the digdevas, which are the controlling deities, they appear. So anything that the jiva does is because Krishna has the ability to do it. So this point is made here to indicate that even though we don't see Krishna's hand directly, but all this is happening because Krishna has willed it in this way. That because Krishna hears, that the tanmatra of sound appears. And because the tanmatra of sound appears, then sky appears to carry that tanmatra. And because Krishna has an ear, the jivas have the ability to hear. So this negates the anthropomorphic projections that people say that the humans created the God in their image. So it's the other way around. God created humans in his image. Because Krishna has ears, we can hear. Because Krishna hears, there is sound. So it's not that we make Krishna in our image. Krishna has made us in his image. So I think we have 4 minutes. So I'll complete this slide. It's a little busy slide, but I'm just doing it to show you the cause and effect, and after that we'll pause for discussion. So the evolution of the elements. So the elements evolve from the subtle to the gross. So like we said, that because there is sound, there is ether. So from the seer to the seen. So from the Dravya Shakti, we had said that when in the ahankar in the mode of tamo results in dravya shakti, which has the 5 gross elements and the 5 tanmatras. So this is the first tanmatra that appears, which is sound. From sound appears sky. Now there is a reverse cycle that also goes. That is made possible by the influence of Krishna. So even though Krishna is not there, but he is still there. So by the influence of Krishna's glance, his external energy and time, because of these 3 things, now from the gross comes the subtle. So from sky comes touch, and then from touch comes air, and from air comes form comes fire comes taste comes water comes smell, and earth. Now each of these elements, they contain all the qualities of the previous elements. Each of this tanmatra, it contains the subtle form of the previous tanmatras. Now we had also said that ahankar in the mode of passion results in the Gyan Indriyas. And what was under the Gyan Indriyas? The presiding deities. So we have the Adidevas who appear in the mode of goodness. So the Gyan Indriya is the ear, and this is the Deva, skin, Vayu, eye, Surya, tongue, Varun, and nose, smell. So we have this connection going on over here. That the tanmatra sound is perceived by ear, presided by Digdevas. Touch is perceived by skin and presided by Vayu Devi. Now, in addition to that, the Gyan, in addition to the Kriya Shakti, we also have the Karma Indriyas. So we said that we have 2 kinds of Indriyas under the Kriya Shakti, the Gyan Indriyas and the Karma Indriyas. And we have presiding deities over them. So we have hands presided by Indra, legs presided by Upendra. So this is not Vaman Dev. This is a demigod by the name of Upendra. Anus by Mitra, genitals by Prajapati, and voice by Agni. Now again, these are all Adi Devas. Important to understand. That's why I've said they are Adi Devas. They are not the demigods who are existing in the material world, because there is no material world right now. Everything is pre-material, pre-creation of the universes. This is still evolving. So we know that Indra comes from Aditi. Aditi is the husband of Kashyap. Kashyap is the son of Marichi. Marichi is the son of Brahma. So that means Indra's existence is dependent on the existence of Brahma, but there is no Brahma right now. So Indra could not exist. But these are all the expansions of the Devas in Vaikuntha who have come along with Mahavishnu to help him in the creation. Okay, so I'll stop over here and see if we have any comments or discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So for Mahavishnu, there is no description, right? Like Mahavishnu's abode. We always, it only starts from the spiritual when we go up, right? I haven't heard about that. Or even any, yeah.
There is only one place that I have read about the description of Mahavishnu's abode, and it is, I believe, in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, where it says that Mahavishnu resides within the waters of the causal ocean, and it's a description as if of Vaikuntha, that palaces are made with emerald pillars, and he is served by countless devotees. And it's almost like a description of Vaikuntha, but that's the only place where I see the description of the abode of Mahavishnu.
Thank you.
It's also said at another place that these Adi Devas, they are constantly serving Mahavishnu. So in an essay written by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he makes this point that the Adi Devas are clustered around Mahavishnu and serving him.
Yeah, because in the image we never see, right? Like there's any opportunity for service. It seems like, yeah.
We don't see. I mean, these are of course images that we made, because it's mostly from the perspective of creation. But wherever the Lord is there, his devotees are there, they are serving him. So one can understand that, the Lord is never alone. He's with his energy. So Rama Devi is there. He's lying on Anantashesh, and wherever he is, he's surrounded by his devotees. So it's a safe conjecture to make that the abode of Mahavishnu is like a Vaikuntha planet.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Regarding Sadashiva is same as Shambhu, or Shambhu is one step below Sadashiva?
Sadashiva is Vishnu Tattva. So you remember when we talked about the Shiva Loka, we said that the upper part of Shiva Loka is Sadashiv Lok and the lower part of it is Mahakala. So Sadashiv is an expansion of Mahasankarshan, and he's essentially Lord Vishnu. But when Mahavishnu glances, then Sadashiv expands into Shambhu. And Shambhu is Shiva Tattva. So Sadashiv is Vishnu Tattva and Shambhu is Shiva Tattva.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Go on, Prabhu, I can hear you.
You can hear me. The other name of Lord Shiva is Shankar, Shankara. I mean Shankarshan and Shankara. The name is related, it's same.
Yes. So Bhakti Siddhanta, I think for the sake of preventing confusion, he refers to Lord Shiv in the outside the universe consistently as Shambhu. When in the material world, then he'll call them Rudras or Shankar or Shiva, but the pre-universe stage, he consistently refers to him as Shambhu. If you look at the Brahma Samhita verses, then constantly refers him to as Shambhu.
Yeah, and then in one of the verses of Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is said that those who make a differentiation between Nityananda and not Sadashiv, Sadashiv and Mahavishnu together is Advaita Charya. They are the same, because we should not make any difference, because they all come from each other.
That is true. That is true. Mahasankarshan expands into Mahavishnu and Sadashiv, and they're essentially all Vishnu Tattvas. So yep.
Hare Krishna. I have a question. My first question is, you mentioned the word Swabhava. I did not really understand the meaning of this word. What does Swabhava mean? Is the first question. And the second question is about Chitta. Do I understand correctly that Chitta is like consciousness of all living beings? Like everything that we see in our life, all our memories, events, they are all stored in Chitta? Or is it something else?
What was your first question? I'm sorry.
What is Swabhava? I just don't.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, so Swabhav, literal translation of Swabhav is nature. Like what is Swa means my, and Bhava is conception. What is my nature? That is the literal translation. Here, Swabhav is essentially understood as that which acts on the modes of material nature and causes them to change from one to another. So remember that when we discussed Pradhan, we said that the modes of material nature are lying passive over there. And Swabhav is the one that agitates them, that causes them to start interacting. Now, the analogy is that even here in the manifest world where we have a swabhav, we have a nature. And because of that nature, we are sometimes in the mode of goodness, sometimes in passion, sometimes mixed goodness, passion. So different modes that we are constantly fluctuating in because of our nature. Early in the day, people are more in the mode of goodness. During the time of sleeping, more in the mode of ignorance. So that is swabhav, is that which is causing the modes to change. And chitta, your explanation was correct. Chitta is consciousness. So it's that which makes the which basically makes the gross body sentient.
I think we are losing Prabhu.
In itself matter. So it's not alive. It's not, it does not have any intrinsic abilities. But through the chitta, the jiva gets awareness. It's kind of like you have a lamp and you have a plug point, and you plug in the plug point into the socket, and the lamp lights up. So that plug point is just giving you the connectivity. So chitta is that media through which the jiva becomes conscious of everything that is going around it.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, is this chitta is part of the subtle body too, Prabhuji? Like maybe we missed you because there were some glitches coming in the audio, so we couldn't hear you. If you have already explained.
You're back now. For a while, everything froze, but now I can hear you.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Is chitta is part of the subtle body, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is subtle. So that is why the four antakarnas, they are considered to be subtle. Mind, intelligence, false ego, and chitta.
Okay, these four constitute of a subtle body. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, we will stop here, and we will resume. And the next discussion, we will finish Sarga and Visarga. Visarga is smaller than Sarga. 6 steps in Sarga, only 4 steps in Visarga. So we should do it a little quicker. Thank you. Vanchakalpatarubhayascha kripasindhubhyaeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. Gaur Premanand. Hari
Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare
Hari
Krishna.
Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Prabhu, for
Very much,
wonderful
Prabhu.
class. Hari Bol.
Thank you.